Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Joy and Gratitude. And I'm here with my co host, Miss Beth Mercurio. And Beth, can you tell us what we're going to talk about today?
RESPCET. We're going to talk about respect. Did I spell that right? As I was singing it, I'm like, I could sing it sing it as I was spelling it. Yes, we're going to talk about respect. And I know for me, that word is loaded kind of in a big, beautiful way. Like, what does respect mean? What does disrespect look like? What does disrespect feel like? And how do we have a really open conversation around why we, you, me, and I can't wait to hear more of what you think, but why respect is so important in how we interact with others and why it becomes this word that does feel loaded. So do you agree respect feels loaded, that it feels like it's got a lot, it's a word with a lot of gravity towards it, I guess is how I feel about the word respect.
That is a perfect description of the sensitivity of that word. Um, and as a woman of color and a woman that also is Hispanic, you wake up every morning ready to be disrespected. Because unfortunately, it is respect comes along with belonging, being seen as a total human, and being given the ability to speak freely and be yourself. So, all those things are wrapped around respect. It's the entirety of who you have become as a person and being accepted for that person. And unfortunately, disrespect is easier to come by than respect.
Say more. I think that is incredibly powerful statement.
We have become a society that we have this expectation that everything should be granted to us under our terms. And that means that whoever is in your way in between what you want and getting it means nothing. And you see that in the way that I travel so much for business. And I see that in the misbehavior that people have towards service agents, whether it's the person that's checking you in, whether it's the person that's pushing your wheelchair, whether it's the person that's giving you the coffee at Starbucks and they scream at that person as if they are not even worthy of being treated with some form of respect and kindness. Um, it is something that is easier to not get than it is to get. Because you see, for someone to respect you, they have to respect themselves first.
That was like a
Because that's the only way
that
that
was like a
you,
drop the mic comment, Neo.
it is.
There it is. There it is.
If you don't respect yourself, you don't even know what respect
Yes.
is. So you come across people and you feel that you have the right to disrespect them to give your ego a boost of who you think you are.
Mm. So it brings us back to this beautiful common thread when we talk about being untangled and we talk about joy and gratitude, that those link so closely to self leadership and understanding ourselves. Because when we understand ourselves, it is then that we can extend. We've talked about this in so many episodes, but you just brought that so clearly to the conversation around respect, because I was really thinking about this idea when you talked about how disrespect comes so easily. My head went right to technology a little bit, to written word, and to how back in our day, you didn't have an ability to text or email even. And so what you were going to say to someone, you had to say to their face a lot more often. Sure, you could talk, gossip existed, of course.
Mhm.
Did people talk behind each other's backs? Yes. But generally, it was less easy to disrespect someone, because oftentimes I do believe that the word, when we talk about it being sensitive and heavy and having gravity, part of that is because it's so personal. It feels personal. So when you can quickly shoot off a text that's very disrespectful, you're not actually having to look at the person, say the thing that is not kind, put yourself out there in a way that may be easier to do when you're not literally having to face that person face to face. So I think that, like, as you mentioned, it being disrespect being a little bit easier, that's where I went. I went to, gosh, the stuff that I see people write where we used to have to say it, you might have to think a little bit longer. Like, am I going to say that? Or maybe think, why am I saying that? Maybe do a little more of that internal introspection around what's really eating at you, that you have this maybe unkind thought or about to say something a little bit disrespectful to someone else as a human. So initially I went there, but then when you gave your beautiful examples, those were all mostly face to face, current day examples of people being disrespectful. So I was right here in this podcast, in this moment, which is what I love. This is not rehearsed, this is just live. I was moving through that with you, going, yeah, what is that about? Why is it that people can be so disrespectful? Why is it that that is the case? And when you just said that, it's like, right, because they long for that. They don't have that. They put that out there in order to elevate themselves over someone else because they're actually seeking more respect potentially.
You got it.
So, yeah, say more. That is, I mean, I
So
literally, for people that can see me, I'm like, I am mind blown that of course that's true, but I hadn't really linked it so clearly to be like, this is the real issue at hand of why this is happening.
yeah, because the thing is, we are seeing the symptoms everywhere, correct? And what you spoke about was something that truly kicked off prevalency during the surgence of social media. Someone wrote a story, it was maybe a funny story or a reflective story, and all of a sudden, trolls, give them a word,
Yeah, yeah.
came, who didn't have faces and had pseudonames, said horrendous things about that individual, about their little kitschy story that they put out, you know. And what I find that was really interesting is that they went after a person's appearance, they went
Mm.
after a person's um, you know, environment. They went after all these things that are so personal, right?
So
And
personal.
it was because they were under a pseudonym and they were hiding their faces. So I would say that that started maybe 10 years ago. Now move us through the years, and as you see our culture transfer and you see the environment that we have, people are emboldened now to do it in person. And you have a situation that we forgot how to mind our own damn business. It's just that simple. The rudeness and the disrespect is because we have forgotten how to mind our own damn business and live our own lives. And maybe it's because we are so sad about our own life that we need to venture out against somebody else's life. I don't know. I think there's some of that is true. But what I do know is respect has to start with you. And you first have
Mm.
to respect yourself. And then, because you do respect yourself, you don't cross the line to disrespect others because you would want to basically give to them the same thing you want given to you. You know, the golden rule. But we have taken that ruler and we have broken the ruler just to give us this moment of superiority. And it's disgusting.
One of the things you said, I've a few things in my swirling around in my heart and in my brain. This idea, it goes back. I just don't want to lose the string. But you said early on something around belonging, and I feel like that's a really important word. And I do think that when you don't feel like you belong, right, then you have this feeling of being disrespected. You're searching. There's a search. That's searching. When we talk about the searching, that's the self leadership, right? You have to do your work, your searching, to then be able to, which is the other two things I wanted to mention, grant grace and assume positive. So if you don't, in your own search, know how to give yourself grace or know how to assume positive intent and actually just be really accountable. So let's talk about respect and accountability, because I think those are pretty highly linked. If you can't be accountable to sort of understanding like what your role is in what's happening, what emotion you're feeling, why you're saying something, then you're not holding yourself accountable to the words that come out that cause pain, the words that come out that cause suffering. You're able to just say it and walk away. And that's the part that I'm like, no, 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 no. If you have true self leadership, then you need to do that work before the words come out that say, I've got something going on here that I want to say, and it's not very kind. Why? Why do I feel like I want to belittle someone or make them feel like they don't belong or have a comment on them at all? Because, like you said, this idea of mind your own business, we are all just walking this earth and doing our path. And we all have struggles and hardships. And a lot of us don't have any idea what another human's going through. And so that's when we talk about granting grace and assuming positive. We have to know how to do that. We have to be in the practice of doing that. So even when we feel disrespected, when somebody puts something into our sphere, right? Our little, like, because I'm doing this for people that can't see me. I'm putting like a little circle around myself because I
Yep.
walk in a little bubble, right?
Right.
And if someone
Absolutely.
throws something at me and I don't want it, when I'm in good practice, when I am feeling centered and I am grounded, I am able to more quickly go, oof, wow, that person must really be suffering for them to have it can simple things, but like, cut you off, say something rude. I mean, it blows my mind when someone gives me the finger and I'm like, wow, like,
You don't even know me.
whoa, like, what is that? But again, now that used to get me really mad. Like I'd get so angry because I felt so disrespected that you don't even know me. But now it's like, that's exactly the point. You don't even know me. So, whoa, I'm going to grant you the grace that you really have some work to do, some healing, something really hard in your life that you did that. But we all need to start to check ourselves to be accountable so that those moments happen less and less. Like our world needs to have self leadership happen first so that when I'm so pissed off that I want to give someone the finger, I go, why am I so angry that this is my move? I think this is my move. That's my work. That is my work. And so you're right. It's so intertwined. And we need to understand what it feels like and get the root of what it feels like to feel disrespected. Why? Because it is then that we can, like you said, be quicker to grant grace to someone else, be quicker to not judge somebody for what's going on. And it's so interesting how disrespect and respect, as we are talking through it, are so intertwined.
It
And
is.
it's really unbelievable now as we're talking about it. It
Yeah.
seems more
And it's
clear to
really
me.
crazy because when someone is brought to task for their bad behavior, their disrespectful behavior,
Hmm.
they always come back, and I don't know if you hear it, they always come back to earlier in the day, XYZ happened to me and I was mad. So it's I am pushing out was given to me. I'm
Mm.
going to push it out to you in 10 times worse level. So it's exactly what you just said. That is the exact situation. It's the yin and yang of I've been disrespected, so I am going to project the disrespect, the pain that I received to someone else.
Yes.
And what we have to remember and be very cautious about is our children.
Mm.
And we have to prepare our children for their mental health. And mental health is not being happy every single day. Let's just get that out of the way. Mental health is being able to acknowledge and process your feelings so that you do not project your negative feelings to others, but you work through them, accept your accountability, and be able to move forward. So we have to make sure that we are teaching our children how to handle respect and disrespect. And what you have been seeing in our society is the norms of teaching just basic respect factors to our children is being diluted. Yes, we want them to be authentic, but children needs they all need guides. They all
That's
want
a good word.
structure because they want to
Mhm.
know what is acceptable and not acceptable. But if you just let them be feral, they don't know. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, it causes a great deal of harm down the road. But back to what you said, we first have to be accountable to ourselves. We're
Yes.
hurting and we have to grant ourselves grace, but know about the importance of grace to others.
Mhm.
Because, I mean, everybody talks about that Robin Williams quote about kindness. You
Mhm.
don't know what the other person is going through, so always be kind. I say you don't know what the other person's going through, so grant them grace and respect.
Respect. And
Respect
be
that
yeah,
they're
go ahead.
human, you know? Go ahead.
Yes. I just was gonna say, and these themes come back because it is such a moment where we are. We're just in a moment. But the theme of also being open. So even when you talk about children and them needing guardrails and boundaries to understand what's acceptable behavior, when and I know we've talked about this in another episode, this also needing to feel their emotions and let them feel their emotions. And this idea of if we can be open enough to try to get underneath their emotions, not just react to the emotion or the behavior, but try to get why. What is happening for that child right now that
Mhm,
is making them lash out in this way and make them feel seen and heard? That's the moment. And it holds true for all humans. So kids are a great example because they're really easy to look at and go, they were flailing all over and literally, very dysregulated. They were so upset and they couldn't find the words. They just weren't in a developmental stage enough to be able to express how they were feeling. But as a parent, if you try to say, like, I understand or I see you and I can tell that you're angry that you're not getting that, let's talk about that and give them an ability to seek understanding and
mhm,
not just shut down. It's the same conversation. We need to, like, if somebody reacts in a way that is really aggressive, doesn't feel like the right word, but that's what's coming up for me. Like, if you say something and their reaction is like really angry or shutting down, people know what it feels like when someone shuts you down. Can we be curious and open enough to go, instead of for us to get angry and meet them at anger, can we say, I must have said something, personal accountability, that was very upsetting to you. And I just want to understand what it is because I certainly didn't intend to get you this angry. But the impact, intention and impact, we talk about that. I'm going to bring it up again, comes back. That's what I mean. We have beautiful themes that are coming back into this episode. I certainly didn't intend for you to have a reaction like that. I play a role in that. There's two people here. So help me understand why this is landing that way because I don't want it to. The impact I've had on you is clearly not what I want. Let's talk about it and so I can understand it. And sometimes the reality is, as we just talked about, if you're not in self-leadership, growth, personal curiosity mode, you may not even know. You may not even know, but I do think that's a way for us to get closer to like being in conversation to get past or understand the disrespect. And if you care enough about someone and you've given them grace and you assume positive intent, you can try to get to that next layer. Maybe
Yeah.
not with everybody. I'm not going to be able to have a conversation with the person that flipped me off, in the car. But that's where the people that you can get a level deeper so that you can hold yourself accountable and learn from that interaction so that if there's something that you do own in there, that's the beauty of mutual growth, is that connection about understanding where the disrespect happened.
And you also are going to have to be okay in not ever finding out where the disrespect happened, because sometimes the
You're
disrespect
right.
is as simple as um, walking into a room and you're not wanted in that room. So
Yes.
I want to talk about how you, as an individual, when you are disrespected, have the power of reaction. You
Mm.
can either escalate the situation by your behavior or de escalate the situation. And that is your choice. Because reality is, if somebody is disrespecting you, they are at decimal level 10 or 11. If you meet them at that 10 or 11, like you stated about where do you meet them at, you are never going to make the situation better. This situation is going to go off the rails fast into areas that you may never even have thought it could go. However, if you kind of lower the temperature, bring it down to a decimal level 3, in that curious nature of not judgment, not playing it in your head as to where it's going to go or why that person is behaving the way they did, not doing that, of bringing your past into the situation instead of being in the situation. You know what I'm trying to say? I've been disrespected like this before, so X equals Y. But being present in the situation and basically lowering the temperature, statistically, it can get better. Not always, but statistically, this situation does not need to end badly. And even if that means that you say, Toodles, I'm out, I don't need to participate in this, that's beautiful. But de escalate. And I think of the kids and I think of teenagers. I think the respect and disrespect is huge in that age group because they're not adults. They're not really kids, you know what I mean? Little kids. They're in that funky age that they're just trying to figure out life. And they have been taught that, when they get disrespected, that they need to stand up for themselves, you know? And they haven't been taught that standing up for yourself is knowing who you are so that you don't need to escalate. That's the missing piece. And that is also the missing piece that adults have. Their idea of standing up for themselves is aggression of some sort, verbal, fists, whatever. But the beauty is when you learn that I know who I am. I know that what that person is saying doesn't reflect on me. I'm like a rhino, things are just sliding off my back. And can I help you? All right. Well, good luck to you. Leave. And that's what we're missing. We're missing the ownership of who you are. You don't need to fight a fight that's not fighting because it's not your fight.
It's it's so good, Neo. It's so good, and it brings us to this idea again of what it feels like when you own your own behavior, when you don't meet someone at that place, and that you can walk away feeling proud. It may still not feel good. You still might, all of those emotions of being disrespected, they're there. But can you then take control of your own self enough to say, and I choose, I have agency, I am empowered to not engage in that way with that human, and actually then walk away and feel what it feels like to not become dysregulated because of somebody else's dysregulation. You said it. And there's such power in that choice. It is super hard. I do not mean to say, when somebody comes at you, for you to just not, it's actually probably going to make them more. If they're an 8 and you don't meet them, they're going to be a 10
That's right.
because your calmness is probably going to escalate them even more. But if you
Hmm.
can really get centered in knowing that you're just, you're going to grant them grace, that this is not about you, that, and you're going to walk away and make that choice, I would say to you, it is a beautiful thing. I have a couple examples where I'm like, I did not engage. And it was like, really felt good, not right away, but when I was able to reflect back and go, how did that happen? Because often if you get really good at personal accountability, you're doing a lot of reflecting. So you don't
Hmm.
walk away and never reflect. You walk away and go, what just happened there? I know I needed to walk away, but I'm going to kind of review that scenario. How did I get there? How did I feel? What choice did I make? And I will say, in my reflective moments when I have chosen or had the real stamina to walk away, I always feel better as a human. When I meet someone at their level, I never feel good. I always feel like somebody crashes. I crash, they crash. It's yucky. There's usually repair needed. It is never a really healthy scenario to meet in that elevated place. But I would say that takes time. And once again, we're going to go back to the theme of practice and practice making yourself make a different choice, because it is really hard when somebody elevates to not meet them at elevation. So that's going to take some work. And that's what we're talking about, like knowing yourself well enough to say, this is not about me, because I know me. And I know that I'm like a great human exactly the way I am. And so whatever they say, I'm not taking that. That's like, I got plexiglass and I'm not going to let that seep into me. And it's so hard, but it is so beautiful when it happens, and it gets easier and easier. But you do need to practice it. You've got to make an intentional choice to show up in a different way and not let you get hijacked by the emotionality of somebody else's nervous system. And we've talked about polyvagus nerve, that's a real thing. Like somebody comes at that energy, you have to actually do something different to not join them in that energy. But if more and more of us can practice it, and more of us can be in conversation when we feel that way, we don't meet. We say, pause, go down to a 3, and have a conversation, or make a choice to disengage. I mean, there's beautiful choices. That's the other thing. There's possibility. And maybe the first step is just don't engage. And then maybe in the future, you get really good and you can start to say, I'm going to stay engaged and have a request. Or, right, there's definitely layers to it. But I think the most important thing is remind yourself that you have a choice to not just meet in that space, and what could happen on the other side of that if you hold yourself accountable to knowing that you are enough.
That is so true. And the thing is, when you said practice, the first thing that came to mind is family. I mean, talk about a beautiful
Yeah,
ground
that's
for
true.
us to practice in. I mean, family has the tendency to do a great deal of disrespect because either they see you as the child you were at 5 years old and they've never in their mind seen you grow past it, or it's just a family thing that we say awkward and weird things to each other and we behave badly with each other as family. That's why we all love Thanksgiving so much, so much. And there's so many
It's
Thanksgiving
true.
jokes, right? Is because family's weird. And yet we're able to live together, in harmony, in a very, we understand each other's quirks and we're able to give each other grace and ignore what is worth ignoring and accept what is worth accepting. So that's a good area for us to practice. But something else that came to mind and why it's so hard. And it's because we know what it is to be respected and be treated well. And we know how that person crossed the boundary. And as we've learned to put boundaries of expectations, it freaking hurts. You know, the feeling is not just the disrespect, it's the pain that goes with it. And you just say, I woke up this morning, I didn't wake up to experience this. How is this happening? So there's a lot of emotion that we have to deal with in a very short period of time to make a choice on our reaction. And we're wounded often, which makes us sometimes not make the best decisions. Now, that doesn't mean that with practice, we can't um, have a guard, a Superman guard, that Superman, Superwoman guard that goes around us when these things happen so that we can protect ourselves and move forward from the situation. But just know that we are not trying to simplify this.
Mm.
We're not trying to gloss over it. We know it hurts. We know it's tough. But we know that you are worthy of respect. We knew how wonderful you are. And we know that you don't have to let it stick to you because it doesn't define you. Beth is patting her chest.
I'm just, yeah, it's just such a truth. And just say it out loud. And we do believe it. We all have the capacity. It just takes hard work and a lot of grace to ourselves and to others. So, Nio, what song is going to represent this incredible, beautiful conversation we've had today?
There's only one. Aretha Franklin. Respect.
We didn't even talk about that.
There's just only one that you could
Yeah,
use.
you're right. You're so
Um,
right.
I think that's the way we all learned how to spell the word.
That's why I was making fun of myself. I'm like, I think I spelled it right. I just did the song. I mean, it's kind of amazing. Oh,
It
what
is.
a perfect, beautiful, beautiful one. Choice.
And,
All
you know,
right.
if you understand um, when she wrote that song, it was an era of a great deal of pain in this country and a great deal of people being invincible, invisible. I can't even say the word. Basically, not seen. Um, and the song was an outcry
Mhm.
to please see me as a person and respect me. And that's really what we've talked about today. I belong. I am. And I'm worthy. What do the beautiful gratitude rocks say?
Let's see. So, oh, here we go. It's this kind of cool purpley blue color, and the word is flow. So, flow is a word that Neil and I love to use. And part of why is because we feel like it's more representative than balance, which feels very structured and a little bit more rigid. We like flow. But also, I think we strive so much to be in flow. I'll certainly speak for myself. I strive to be in flow. And that to me is exactly what we've talked about. Because when I am, when I belong, when I feel worthy, I am in flow and can navigate the hard world that we're in and can navigate some of these moments. So for me to practice being respectful in ways that we've described is really when I am in flow, I am in practice of that mode of really using the flow of life to help me make choices to be the best human I can be.
Beautifully stated. This has been an episode that I think we really went deep on something that is so important in all our lives. And when we are in flow, we understand who we are. It really is about self leadership, and it is about living your life in joy and grace.